Is it in your skin? Is it in your bones? All your honor undertow. And there it goes, the middle road. There goes everything untold. For the love, for the long run, one by one, your favorite son. It was Arizona, the 17th, the hell knowing what's underneath. And I'm so sorry I couldn't speak, so sweet.
You have a series of questions for me, do you?
I do.
My name is Keith Risley, and my job at Bethesda as grounds supervisor is to take care of the entire church grounds, including the church mouse and the rectory and the vicarage. And I've been working at Bethesda for over 35 years. There are seasons, and the plants will tell you, guide you toward those seasons normally, if they're in flower or if it's a growing season. And there's definitely a difference. In the summertime, things will grow twice as fast as those few months that it's a slight bit cooler. So those seasons are accurate but not as defined.
My name is Hal Peischer. I'm the Associate for Music and Liturgy. That title incorporates many things. I'm one of 4 associates to the rector. I'm what would be considered organist and choirmaster, and I'm also the person who oversees all the worship ministries of the parish. I think I started August 1st, 1987. Just a little while ago. I had decided that I was going to re-audition everyone in the choir. And so they were not celebrating too much the fact that they had to come in and sing for this new guy, and some of them had been in the choir for a long time. So that was not a celebration for them, but it was a necessary thing to do.
Mother Margaret McGee. I'm the curate here at Bethesda. I've been here for about 2 years. I personally first became aware of coronavirus in late January. There were some news reports, but nothing that seemed too alarming, just something to be cautious of, to pay attention to. And I think we started talking about it in the church in early February. We were coming up into Lent. By that point, the thought of closing the church had not crossed anyone's mind, but the thought of maybe making some adjustments due to the pandemic was there. And by Ash Wednesday, we realized that we really did need to make some adjustments to what we were doing. So after Ash Wednesday, we continued to look at what was happening in the world day by day. And it was really the week of March 10th, I think, that things really came to a head, both in the church and around the world. The last Sunday service we had was on Sunday, March 8th. But by the 11th, I think we and much of the world were starting to realize that we would need to make changes in order to protect people's health. On March 12th, we actually sent out a notice to the church that we would be suspending services for at least 2 weeks, because we wanted to be sure that we didn't become a place where people were getting sick. And in many ways, you could say we've been taking it a week or two at a time ever since. We've been watching what's happening in the world, watching statistics, watching the numbers of COVID cases, both around the world and here in Palm Beach, trying to do our best to make faithful and responsible decisions about how to move forward. And that's where we still are today.
I look for season meaning more of the church season, so as to have the landscape looking much more presentable during the height of the season, as opposed to the growing season where I would want to trim a lot of material back. I try to schedule things so that they're going to look the best toward the end of the year, meaning Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and of course in the spring when things want to flower and look their best for Easter, and when people are, more folks are around.
Every decision we're making in consultation with the diocese. The diocese has put together some criteria that we can use to determine when it's safe to start activities of various sorts. And they framed it as a series of seasons. Right now we're in season 1, which means pretty much everything is closed. Season 2 would be maybe some in-person worship, but with masks and people staying some distance apart. We're not quite there yet. And season 3 would be something closer to what we might all call back to normal. We know that we'll be in season 2 when we see a decline in the number of cases locally. That's the primary thing we're looking for. So 14 days of fewer cases each day than the day before, or at least a pattern where we can rely that the case count is going down. That's the first thing we're looking for. We also want to make sure that hospitals are not overwhelmed. Basically, that there's no sustained new transmission of coronavirus in Palm Beach County, and we're looking at it in Palm Beach County. So it's a very local decision. So that's the criteria that will determine when we can go to season 2.
The church, the powers that be, the committees, the wardens, the vestry, were smart enough to tie the new organ into a capital campaign that we were doing for other projects. And surprisingly, the old organ, was only 20 years old. But one of the big selling points that we used was that the leather in it was deteriorating and had to be replaced, and the organ was installed in such a way that the whole thing had to be taken out in order to restore that. And to take it out and put it back in exactly the same way it was would have cost 2/3 the cost of a new organ. It takes a good year or so for the instrument to be built at the factory, and then installation of the organ takes a good long time. Invoicing, they go through every pipe in the organ. We had an awful electronic organ. There are plenty of perfectly wonderful electronic organs, but we had an awful one that had a whole wall of speakers over in that area where the piano resides. And it looked like we were ready for a Who concert. All these speakers along the wall. People who sat in that area would just get their ears blasted out on Sunday mornings. And they continued to do it because that was their seat. They weren't going to move because of the organ. I think people were really excited about the fact that a new instrument was coming, so they were able to deal, like all of us, with that electronic instrument.
Bethesda tends to be very seasonal. We have a lot of people who go away for the summer. This year, we've managed to stay in touch with those folks. They may be scattered all over the country, but they can still come to coffee hour, because coffee hour is on Zoom, it's online. And that's actually really been a blessing of this time, that we can stay in touch with people across the country, across the world. And that's something that I think we've learned is valuable.
Always surprised as to what nature throws at us. So whether it be a cold front and it'll burn something, or extremely hot and they just can't survive the heat, or hurricane, so they get wiped out. I think the 2004 15 years ago or so. I saw several trees just tip over, most of them broken at the base, so couldn't be righted and saved. So we lost several, I think 6 large trees on the church grounds itself during those storms. And it too was a challenge to get here to bring things back, because we weren't allowed back until the roads were clear. And so the landscape changed, especially during those storms.
It feels almost normal to us now to go in there on usually on a Thursday morning to record the Sunday service. I sort of am thankful at this point that I'm not continuing at a time when I would have to be part of a discussion about how does church look? What do we do with no choral singing? What do we do with no congregational singing? How do we, all of that stuff, which would mean reconfiguring everything that I've done my whole life, in terms of how we do church. And that's a challenge for everyone. And it will be a challenge for Stuart, my successor, as well.
I guess it's the soil, probably, that I've learned a lot about, what it takes to grow a good plant and keep it healthy for longer periods of time. How much moisture we get naturally during the rainy season, and how to adapt that with the plants. Plants also need a lot of light, so if we're not getting the bright days, we're figuring that out as well.
I don't know that there was really a turning point. The last couple Christmases and Easters that I've been through, I said, I don't have too many more of those left in me. Everybody's busy around Christmas. Everybody's busy around Holy Week and Easter. But for a church musician, that is just such a crunch time. So for a couple years, I said, I don't have too many more of those left. It's sort of been very unreal, as it has been for everyone these last few months, because I sort of assumed when I was to retire that I would keep going and going and going and going and going, and then the retirement date was there and you stop. But it's all been different for the last 3 or 4 months, so that's been very strange.
This is not the first time like this, and the church has always come out of times like this at least as strong as it was before, and often stronger. Because times like this call us to examine our faith, call us to focus, force us to focus. And I think Father James has said this, times like this are often the most fruitful times in Christian history. Times that maybe call for some sacrifices, but also show the real fruits of faith. It's easy right now to think, this has been going on for 6 months. How much longer is it going to go on? I'm sick of it. And I am sick of it. I think we're all sick of it. I think this is something we will get out of gradually. We may not know when it's over. It's just that there'll come a day when we go for a month without thinking about it. And that's when it'll be over. But there are patterns to our life, but sometimes it takes a while to actually see them. And I suspect that the changes in season that we'll be experiencing as we move forward are a little bit like seasons in Florida, that we may not recognize them until they're well upon us.
It was Arizona, the 17th. Hell knowing what's underneath. And I'm so sorry I couldn't speak. I'm so sorry I couldn't speak. I'm so sorry I couldn't speak. So sweet.
So I'm all finished.